Hey.
It's another Monday.
Of course.
And here we are back at the winery.
What?
Yes.
It's Monday?
Yeah.
No, it's not
they're
Monday.
out there.
That's not your camera again.
Yeah.
I
Cheers.
can't believe that.
Another one.
Here's one good thing. We have wine in our glasses.
Of course.
We
to start
started,
off.
yeah. Even before pressing go, Ken had something in our glass.
Of course he did.
Yes,
of course he did.
of
Hi,
course.
folks. Welcome back to
everyone.
Hermit Woods. We had a couple good field trips last couple of weeks. We went to Defiant Records 2 weeks ago, and actually they joined us yesterday for a tasting and a tour of the winery. And then last week we got to spend some time in the cellar with Twin Barns and their brewer and one of their owners. That was a lot of fun. If you didn't see either of those episodes, they're live on our website now. You can always go back and watch them. And we have an exciting opportunity today. This is even new to me. I don't think I've ever
It's new to me, actually.
had this many consecutive wines. Yeah,
This is good.
We did a Lakehouse White
Yeah, but I don't know if we got
vertical tasting, but we didn't have this many. I think we had maybe
We're going
4.
back 7 vintages, starting with 21 of our Lakehouse Red, and 21 is still.
It doesn't even actually exist.
It doesn't exist.
This doesn't
yet.
actually
It
exist.
hasn't been made yet. So hold that thought. 21 and 20, we'll be trying both are still in barrel, and one of them hasn't been blended yet, which is what he's talking about. We'll get into that in a minute. And then we have
18 and
19, and 15, 14, and 13. So 7 years of single wine, and we're going to taste them, and we're going to go back. And one of the things we'll explore today, which will be interesting, is there's 2 things that are changing every year with these wines. One is Ken is getting better and better and better at what he's doing. So each year the wines are getting better. They're getting more amazing. He's learning more techniques to really to make the wines more interesting every year. So there's that change that we're going to be seeing occur. And then there's also obviously 2013. That's 8 years of aging. 2 years in before bottling, and then 6 years in the bottle. So we'll get to see how age has affected some of these wines as well. So before we get into that, let's do a couple things. As always,
I want to get into this, Bob. Quick, talk.
Go right ahead. Have a sip.
Gotta wait. I want to learn about it before.
No, we have wine there.
Well, this is
All right.
guys,
Anyway,
you guys
so before we start, yes, go ahead, Bob.
We do need to remind everybody that this is a live broadcast, and if you are joining us for the first time, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube, you can go right down below Ken. There's a subscribe button. And
Where?
I know. It's
I don't see it. I don't see it.
If you're on Facebook, there's a little bell on the screen. Click that bell and it'll subscribe you to our channel. If you subscribe to the channel, whenever we go live, either on Monday nights or any other time, so from some random place like on the ice last week down in Meredith Bay, that was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah. That's no longer the case in the Bay now.
Yeah, no skating now.
Not at all.
No. So, but when we go live, you'll get a notification and you can tune in and watch us live. So, also, if you like what we're doing on Monday nights, share these episodes with your friends and you can share the post or share the link after the fact. And like our broadcast so people know you're out there. And if you are joining us today, please put your name in, or say something in the comment section so that we know. Marika's going to she's our co-host, and she's going to be watching the comments and making sure that if you are commenting today, we do get to your questions and comments live. Right. If we don't, for some reason, we always try our best after the show to get to all of your comments post the show.
And where's Chuck today?
And where is Chuck today?
I think he's still in Denver.
He's in Denver. He's learning how to fly a really big new plane,
777.
the 777. That's so amazing to me. He's learning how to fly this massive plane, and he's going to, in a few months, be flying people around the country.
Yeah. And he's 2 weeks in, and he's so far, when we spoke to him, he's like, yeah, I think,
piece of cake.
A piece of cake. It's somewhat similar. I got to learn this and that. And except now there's, 380 people behind me instead of 250 people or whatever, the size of the plane.
I have to say, though, from what I know about Chuck, if there's anybody ever flying a plane that I'm in when there's a problem, I hope it's Chuck.
Oh, yeah. I want Chuck there. He is so studious, so on it with everything.
I mean, he was studying for this training weeks before he even ended up in Colorado. So yeah. Sorry, Chuck, if you're out there, tune in, say hello. We'd love to say hi. I think I covered everything. Marika, you want to let us know who's joined us today?
All the usuals have made themselves known. We've got Matt here, flying solo tonight. He said he's only opening one bottle.
All right.
So just Matt, no Lynn tonight, but Christina's joined us, Janice has joined us, Gary's here. That's all.
That have made themselves known thus far.
Excellent.
Okay.
But
Great.
All right.
Welcome,
Got it.
folks. Thanks
Yeah.
for
Good turnout to start anyway.
Thanks for joining us.
Matt's excited. He said this is one of the wines that moved them to invest in the wine cellar.
Awesome. One of these days, we're gonna let him invest in a barrel club. Right?
Isn't
We're
Matt
supposed to do
coming up
that.
here to do a show?
Matt's coming up to do a
Right.
show in 2 weeks.
Couple weeks.
Next week we're going to be. That's good. Next week we're going to be
Valentine's
here
Day.
again. We're doing a Valentine's Day dessert wine and chocolate.
Sugar Rush.
Sort
Yeah.
of a follow-up to Sunday, where
Yes.
hopefully some of you are planning on joining us for a chocolate and dessert, or no, not chocolate, dessert. Wine
and chocolate.
Wine and dessert. Because it's not just chocolate.
Well,
Oh,
then
vanilla cookie.
Got other things.
we lied.
I've been using wine and dessert. Wine and dessert.
Okay.
Mostly chocolate.
Well,
Mostly
chocolate is
chocolate.
dessert.
Mostly
so-
chocolate.
Right.
Anyway,
Anyway,
a lovely
it'll be
pairing event
delicious
next
wine
Sunday.
with great sweet treats to have with your wine next Sunday from noon to 4. So if you want to join us for that, and then the next week, Matt and Lynn, 2 of our club members, are going to be coming on the show to cook some really fine food for us.
I can't wait.
I know.
It's gonna be
I
Doing another
can't
cooking
wait. So we're gonna have a guest host. This will be the first time we've had a guest host.
I know.
Yeah, we'll just get to sit back and enjoy while Matt.
We just
Runs
keep
the
pouring
show.
Red Scare to him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll be
Just
happy.
make sure.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Matt.
Definitely.
So today, let's get into what we're going to
Yeah.
do. So you
So we're
started
gonna
with
do it.
21.
Yeah, we're gonna do a deep dive on one of the wines that we've been making for a long time called Lakehouse Red. It's a blend primarily of 4 berries, blackberries and blueberries, as well as elderberries and raspberries. And every year is a little different, and we're going to go back in time. So we're going to start with the youngest, and then we're going to work our way back in time to the oldest vintage that we have. And this will be interesting for you guys too. I don't know if you notice when you smell this, but this is what a really young wine smells like. It's going through malolactic fermentation right now, which gives it a milky lactic tang and effervescence to the tongue. It also has some sulfur components to the nose, which are from the young aspects of the yeast still doing their things. And it's common, it happens all the time. Eventually, as you'll see, the wines change quite drastically as they get older in age. So the very first one right here is what will be the 2021 Lakehouse Red, which won't be out until 23 or 24. Right now, it's still in pieces. It doesn't exist as a blend. So I have some barrels that have blackberry and blueberry, mostly blackberry with a little bit of blueberry, and those are going through malolactic fermentation. Those got blended with some blueberry wine that was made, and also some elderberry wine that was made. And then I have a barrel which is the raspberry component. So there are some raspberries that were fermented and aging. And so those all got blended in the sort of proportions that I like, that I typically use. It's changed a little bit from early on. I had some difficulties over time scaling up and finding enough fruit and finding good quality fruit. It's some of my biggest challenges to get the right amounts at the right time to work with them. So this is the 21, and what's interesting for me is to try to taste the pieces or the characteristics of the wine, thinking about what I know it's going to happen to it after it spends more time in barrel and it matures. The sulfur goes away, the milkiness goes away, the flavors start to integrate. So I've got to decide how to blend it, knowing how that's going to play forward. So you guys get to see how it plays forward. We've got really some chunks of time to think about here. The 21 and 20 that we'll do right at the beginning here, are extremely young. They're just young wines. The 20 is a year older. And then we'll jump into the 19 and 18, which have stabilized enough to be put in a bottle.
So why is 20 in 2 separate containers?
Well, this has now spent, and we'll go to that next. And I'll tell you that. Let's
Okay, let's take
talk
the 21.
about the 21
Yeah.
for a second. So do you smell any sulfury
I don't get.
components?
I
You don't get
I don't
sulfur?
get it.
No,
Okay.
I do get
any
that.
milky kind of tangy, like
Definitely,
like a
it's
milk?
definitely a tangy or slightly, I don't know, more acidic
Mhm.
than what it ends up being.
And I don't know. You mentioned possibly yeast. I don't know if it's yeast. I mean, maybe it's the malolactic. I'm not sure what that is, but there's something that tastes like it's something off, something different off from what
Right.
you normally expect,
Right.
whether it's the yeast or something.
It's kind of the yeast at this young stage is usually creates a bit of a mouthfeel, a creamy sort of mouthfeel. Maybe think of some bready notes. You think of bread and the yeast that come from fresh bread. Maybe you get some of that in there. Do you pick up a little bit of a tongue tingle in the wine? That's the malolactic that's going on.
You know, when I first put this in my mouth and I let it settle, don't before I chew it around, I just let it settle on my tongue. It seems really soft, surprisingly soft. As soon as I start chewing it around, I get some of the tang that you're talking about. But it's
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
surprisingly soft on
it does have a
my mouth.
soft. It takes a while for that more steely, sharper components of wine to come out, and we'll do that with these.
Well, I
These
like the
next two.
softness though. We don't
Right.
lose too much of it. It's kind of interesting, and actually, what it suggests to me is that we talk about this a lot. Is that your mouth tastes from all over your mouth. Your mouth, you taste in your cheeks, you taste under your tongue, above your tongue, all over your mouth. So when you first put the wine in your mouth, you don't get the full experience of the wine. You have to really chew it around and cover your whole mouth, and then you get that understanding of the mouth feel when you do that. And so that's why it was really interesting when I just let it sit just poured it into my mouth and let it just sit, not move at all, and see what happens there. That was kind of new to me. I haven't done that before. So what are you going to do, side by side? Is that
So that's what the next two.
Okay.
The next two you do a side by side.
okay?
I'll just send them down.
Ken, will the newest version be corked? Are we going to stay corks for this one?
We are,
Or
but we
transition
switched
to-
our cork starting in 19. Or we
So a
started,
new kind of cork, same thing.
it's a new kind of cork. It will be cork finished. All of our age-worthy, more premium, I guess, sort of wines are done in a cork finished format. Although screw caps do provide everything that a cork does, except for that pop process. But as far as the breathing that a cork does, the new Stelvin capsules do that. But going click, click, click is a little different than pulling a cork.
Well, and some of
on
it
a special
we've
occasion.
talked about. That a lot of folks out there still have this idea that cork is a better closure. That the better quality the wine, the more likelihood that a cork is in it.
That's
So
all changing.
it's changing, but we're sort of in the middle of it right now. So we've made the decision to sort of ride it out, where our older wines, our premium, ageable wines, ones that we recommend you lay down in your cellar. For now, anyway, we're going to continue to use corks, but maybe someday we're going to switch all the way over to screw caps.
I love that.
Sure is easier, isn't
It
it?
is. And it's safer for the wine. I mean, corks are great, but sometimes they end up tainting the wine or failing, and the wine gets ruined. And that's a real shame.
Mm.
That
Would
doesn't have the
you-
screw cap.
Another question from Matt, of course. Do you feel that this wine could be a better investment, or in terms of a library wine, than Red Scare?
Yeah, they're so different to me.
They are quite different, Matt. It's a good question.
Say they're both ones that are, well, I guess we're going to see, but
Yeah, you see as you go down, it's a different sort of product, and we'll see with the ageability. Quite frankly, I think the progress I've made with the Red Scare over the past decade or so has been better than the progress I've been able to make with Lakehouse Red.
it's not as different each year.
I'm still struggling with the balance and the characteristics of this wine as it ages. So now what we
Next
have
one.
in our side-by-side is the 2020 vintage, which is completely blended. The bulk of it is in barrel, and a smaller portion of it is maintained in a stainless steel tank. And what I'm doing there is two things. Or I've learned about this from two different sources. One was back in 2012, I bottled some Red Scare that stayed in stainless steel, and I made a Red Scare that went into a little oak barrel. And I also did that in 13 and 14. And I had two different products. The stainless steel maintains kind of the bright, fresh, fruity character of the wine. And the barrels start to modify it, adding different spices, different flavors, different characteristics to the wine. So I would explore by trying to blend a little bit out of each bottle. And I found that I liked something that was mostly barrel aged, but still had a little bit of the tank to it. So in Red Scare, starting in 2015, I started just doing that at the big scale, not bottling them separate. And I've followed that with the Lakehouse Red as well. And this is done quite often in Provence, especially in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. You got me that great book years ago, Bob, that talks about all the different vineyards that make Châteauneuf-du-Pape, which is basically a beautiful red wine that's mostly Grenache and Syrah with a little bit of Mourvedre, three different types of grapes that are blended together. And they will often barrel down parts of it and keep some of it in stainless steel and then blend those together. So today what I have for you is the 2020 vintage of Lakehouse Red, both from the barrel and from the stainless steel tank. So you can see after a year, I put the barrel aged portion, went into barrel on February 25th last year. So it's been nearly a year in the barrel.
Even just looking at it, the steel is clearer versus the barrel.
Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat.
Yeah. Oh. Interesting. I get a lot more elderberry on the nose of this and a lot more blackberry on the flavor compared to the 21. 21, I was tasting more raspberry, and this I'm tasting more blackberry.
So both of these,
The differences are still subtle.
you don't find much difference.
There's a difference. There's definitely, you can get just a hint of oak. I haven't tasted it yet, but I do get a hint of oak on the nose. But it's just a hint. It's not. I mean, these are I'm guessing barrels that are quite neutral, but maybe not. I don't know how neutral these are.
This one I pulled out of barrel 47, which has only been used twice before.
They're not completely neutral.
But the batch is in 6 barrels. Boy, sorry, I got quite a tickle in my throat. And that, so some of those barrels are real neutral. Some of the barrels have some smoky components to them. I don't know if you pick this up. It's part of it is the elderberry that's coming through in this blend.
Mm-hmm.
But also there's acetic acid that's in wines, and the volatile components associated with that are called volatile acidity. And volatile acidity is nice at low levels, and it can bring out fruitiness and create interesting components to a wine, but it can also go too far and sort of dominate some of the aromatics. Some people are more sensitive to it than others.
I get it on the stainless steel one more than I do the barrel one.
Interesting.
Maybe because I tasted the stainless steel one right after you started talking about it. Sometimes that happens a lot, actually.
Yeah, once you plant a word, oh yeah, I get that now. Yeah, sure.
Sure, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of things going on in your mouth, and you don't. It's almost, for me especially, it's impossible for me to label them all. They're all there, and I can taste them, and I know all the differences. But I don't have a good enough memory connected to my taste buds to know what all those different flavors are. But when you said it, then I recognized it.
Right.
Subtle.
What's fun here too is we're going from very young wines. Now, some of that young yeastiness that was there on the first wine is gone. And this is, to me, sort of a cleaner, sharper sort of wine.
Right.
More
This
wine-like.
especially, I think.
So you're going to
From the
blend
first one.
these usually 50-50, or you don't know? It just varies.
Oh no, this is already crafted. It's already set in stone.
No,
No,
in
these
the
two.
end,
In the
Yeah.
end, though, you're going to bring stainless steel and oak together.
Yeah, and
And
that's
what
already set.
percentage?
It's the percentage is 6 barrels, which is around 1,300 liters, and I believe there's 400 liters in the tank.
All right. So
So
a little more
13
of
to
this.
4.
Yeah, I'm just going to see what happens.
There you go. Right, so it's a little bit like that, and then that's going to be your final blend.
Oh, perfect.
my mom is wishing that she was here tasting with us. I told her if she starts driving now, she might make it before we leave. It's a little snowy out there, though. Maybe
Drive
not.
slow.
Yeah.
We'll drive slowly.
Oh, I think this has some nice potential.
Yeah, what's really interesting as we dive into the next ones is see what age brings
Right.
to wine. Because I taste these young things all the time, trying to lay stuff up and put it into motion so that down the years later it will taste right. Taste the way we want it to taste.
And you think this will show up in the tasting room around the end of this year, or
No.
23?
No, probably 23, because we're still
just about to put that one.
we're
Still
just
going into
releasing the
19.
19.
Okay.
Oh, we still have a few bottles left of the 18,
Yep.
the tasting room, right?
Yep, that's what's on the
And
shelves
then,
right now. We've got at least a
Right
case
behind
out
it
there.
is the 19,
Which will get us into 23, and then we'll
which will
release
get
this.
us through this year,
Yeah.
probably.
Are there any of these bottles? So right now, 2018 is what's on the shelf. 2019 will be out soon. Are any of these others available for people to purchase?
No,
We have
these
very
older
few
ones
left,
are very
right?
limited,
Yeah.
and
Our club members got some, right?
well,
Just
we did
a select
release
few, yeah.
6 bottles to 6
Out of
club
8, I think
members.
there were 8 left, right? Something like that?
There are 8 or 9. There's
Yeah.
3 or 4 now, minus the one that we're
Right.
having tonight.
Right.
But
so the two
our
bottle.
2-bottle club has been kind of fun. I've been digging into the library a little bit for our patrons of the 2-bottle club.
It's fun that we can do that.
And
Yeah, 'cause
so
with so
this-
few members, we can get away with
Yeah, there's so
extra
few
special
people
things.
in it, I can actually do that. So we have both a bottle of the 19 and a bottle of the 14. That's going
Oh,
out in
so
the
people will
2-bottle
be
club.
their
And they can
own
do
vertical.
5-year separation between
Yeah.
those 2 wines.
Oh, I can't wait to see
And you guys
how
are
that
going to
Yeah.
try
goes.
that tonight.
Yeah. That's cool.
All right, you ready? So let's go
Yeah.
into a bottled product now. What I recommend you do is to just pour a little bit in your glass, swirl around to get the last bit out.
So yeah,
So
at
this
least
is
2
the
of those
19.
club members are listening in now, and we'll have to make sure as people pick up, we'll make sure that they know that we've done this tasting, and they can
Yeah.
tune in later when they've.
Let's do 19 and 18 side
Here,
by
I'll give
side.
you your rinse.
We can do 1918 together. Good idea.
Yeah, do 18 on the. Even the color, you can see the color
years
difference.
that these are?
Yeah, they're written on the back.
Yeah. I was gonna say, don't let's not. Oh, there's a different color.
And they're a different color, yeah.
Oh, Matt's excited. So he's been collecting Lakehouse Red over the years anyway, and 14 is one that he's missing. Okay.
So 19 and 18.
1918.
1918.
What year that was?
19 and 18.
World War II
1918.
ended?
No, that was the year.
Spanish flu.
The first American pandemic.
Yeah. First pandemic.
Or
it's
why
not
that
World
came
War
in.
II.
You said 19 and 18. That's what came to
19
my
and
mind.
So this is kind of fun. These wines were made from a little different fruit component than what I had earlier on. And the biggest change was the source of the blackberries, which make up a big portion of the fruit. The blackberries since 2018 through current have come out of New Jersey. And prior to that, in 14 and 15 and 13, we had a supplier all the way out on the West Coast in Oregon and Washington.
I have to say, this is a bias that I really shouldn't have. But every time Ken tells me he gets fruit from New Jersey,
Jersey.
Really? They're big producers.
No, I know.
They grow a lot of really good fruit.
And New Jersey.
But you just think of Newark.
I know.
Right?
I think of Newark and I think of the seacoast, but New Jersey. And the odd thing is that when I first traveled in New Jersey, realized how big and how rural most of New Jersey is.
Very ag-based.
People don't think of it, but
No.
even me, who's traveled into those agricultural areas of New Jersey, I still think, New Jersey, you're getting fruit from New Jersey.
One of the things that's amazing about these two is you can see the color difference.
I was just thinking that, and even from these two,
and these were brighter red.
These two were definitely a little brighter, a little pinker or purpler.
Yep.
And then this gets a little bit darker, and then this gets much.
And some
more
of these
of that
color
bricky
changes
red.
here, some of these color changes have to do with some of the slight variations, I'm assuming, of the fruit and the blending. But just to point out, when drinking, in most cases, drinking red wine, as the older you get, the closer that wine is going to go from a bright purple when it's young and fresh to a red brick color.
Right.
And most people discover that if you hold your glass so that the wine thins out on the very edge above a white surface, you'll be able to look through that thin edge and start to see those color variations. And what's fun is if you get good at it, you practice it enough, you actually could be, it's a kind of a good party trick. You could be drinking a nice vintage bottle of red wine and nail the color and say, I think we're drinking a 2014 this year. What say you to that?
There we go.
And you go, wow, how did you know that?
Yeah.
It's pretty, maybe you'll be off by a year, but it's pretty cool trick.
Gary
But
says
not
he
as
can even
easy
see
here,
it.
'cause this is different fruit.
Gary says he can even see it on camera, the color difference.
Yeah.
I have trouble getting past just the fact that I prefer as a color the like slightly lighter purpler color. I think it's just so pretty.
Well, it's a compromise. You'll have to.
Yeah.
There's some of those vintage wines taste pretty good when you give up
Try
that
and get
color.
it up to the camera a little more.
It's amazing to me. We just go from this young.
You can
If I
switch
go-
to
I
the
was
front
thinking if
camera.
I
Switch
go-
Switch to the front camera. So just click the little guy in the left corner. There you go, and then you can hold it right up.
Oh yeah, there we go. So this is
Look
the
at that.
19. And then, oh wait, yes.
Yeah, so that's the 18.
And there's the 18.
So hard to tell without a white
Yeah.
background tipping it out.
Yeah.
But it's pretty obvious here under the lights.
Yeah. this
Looking
is
at it,
definitely
you get
got
that little
brick
darker color, a little orange character to it.
When you swirl it, you thin it out on the edges too. You can really see the variation too.
What I like in doing this exercise, going from the bright, fresh, young, yeasty things to more and more wine-like products that you think of when you think about wine, with that tannic, with some of the integration of the flavors. And
So help me understand. I'll just be straight up. The 19 to me is a better wine. It tastes better. Now it may not be a better wine, but for me, it seems rounder and smoother. There's almost the elderberry seems dominant to me in the 18, more dominant. Elderberry is very distinct. Maybe.
see, I think the 18 is drinking better than the 19 right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I think the 19 will be better when it gets that additional year on it. But I think the 18 is smoother and more integrated, softer, and has some of those aged things that you can't get. What I like about the 19 is what I tried to do when I vinified this. and it was to build a bigger tannic structure to the wine. So I had a very complex regime of pulling off early fragments, repressing some of the pomace, and developing a bigger, bolder wine. And I think, especially within 5 years, I think this 19 is going to be one of the better vintages that I've done.
That's what I'm responding to. This has got more weight to it.
Yep.
It's got more mouthfeel, and this has more complexity. There's more variety going on here. I get that.
Yeah.
I get a lot of different character flavors, which it's fun. It makes it more lively. And I'm just responding. When I tasted this, it just had this nice, really classic weight of a nice dry red.
And that was the goal. I'm glad to hear that. That was really my goal. This was a little, previous vintages were a little thinner. I've been struggling to try to pull out and to build, the wines that we mostly consume, all of us, are made out of these wonderful things called grapes. They grow really well.
They work really
in a
well
variety
with wine,
of places, and they make fantastic wine.
Really?
Great complex flavors, really good tannic structure. But they
Wine
don't
from
grow
things
here
that-
at all. So we took on the challenge to try to see if we can craft wine that gives us that satisfaction that you get out of a good vinifera-based wine. So that was the goal there. So there was a complex pressing format to try to develop that. In the 18, I split it into 3 different batches and experimented with 3 different yeasts. And I picked out my favorite, and that was used entirely for 19. And 19, I was playing around with different press times and trying to build it. So I stepped through the years trying to get to better and better.
So we're both right. This is better and this is better.
They're better for different reasons.
Right.
Have you changed filtering process at all? Have you changed the filtering in different process or in different years?
The filtering has changed in whole at the winery with the purchase of some better, more sophisticated equipment. The first major event of buying good filtering equipment, it was in 2015. But that's not even used on this stuff. Oh. So these red wines,
unfiltered.
This is unfiltered. I'd have to go back to my notes. Sometimes I'll run the wine through like a 10 micron, a very coarse filter in case there's particles that could jam the bottle filling wine. But I don't filter it. When we have our strawberry rhubarb, our crabapple, our rosé, those get filtered.
So to be clear, when you talk about 10 micron filtering, people are like, oh, well, what's that? Certainly that's how I react. I have no idea what 10 microns look like. Imagine it to be pretty small. But the difference being, and this is one of the things that always strikes me, like when you filter Lakehouse White, Lakehouse White gets filtered all the way down to, I think, your 0.45
micron.
0.45, so even smaller. And 0.45, if I'm correct, is also able to stop yeast and bacteria from getting through, correct?
Right. So most yeast particles are around 0.8 to 1.5 microns in size. So if you choose a filtration grid that's smaller than that, it will hold back
the yeast.
The yeast particles. Bacteria can go down to 0.2 micron, but so they're more challenging.
Yeah. But my point
and then
was,
viruses, forget it.
When you'd hold up a glass of the Lakehouse White pre-filter, you go, that's nice and clear. It looks really beautiful. It's nice and sharp. And then he runs through the filter, and you hold it side by side with the filtered one, and it's
brilliant.
It's remarkable how brilliant, how clean it is. Yeah. So that little tiny bit of filtration makes a big difference. So when you're up to 10 microns, it's barely touching the
very often red wines are not filtered for a couple of reasons. One, because they have a dark color, you're not really looking through them for that brilliance. You don't see that brilliance as
clearness,
much.
Yeah.
And two, the molecular structure of the polyphenolics that give you the color and the flavors in a red wine are long chain molecules. which can get held up in the filtration, in a tight filtration, they're taken away. So they're stripped out of the wine. And you can actually feel the mouthfeel is different and the taste can be different by filtering.
So most of our red wines now are not.
Most of them are not filtered.
And so there may be sediment, and quite frankly, any wine, if it's old enough, if you sit it in a bottle long enough, is going to collect sediment anyway, and that has to do with material, proteins, or
think of Lego pieces, 2-dot Lego pieces.
Yep.
Well, those little 2-dot ones will sometimes click together. You got a 4-dot or a 3-dot. And they can link and join together. Eventually they can connect up and they become more dense than the liquid and they settle to the bottom. So you'll see in the inside of this bottle, the 2014, there's some sediment stuck in the neck.
Yeah.
That was stored upside down, and some of that sediment was...
So any wine, even a filtered wine, eventually...
Even a filtered wine.
Can throw sediment. So
Yes.
if you're drinking a wine that's 10, 12, 15 years old, even if it was filtered,
with Gordon, and there's the bottom 1.5 inches of the bottle is complete sludge that you don't want to drink. But the stuff above it is fantastic. It's just one of those changes. So
we need
interesting, right? Between these two?
Yeah, let's use one of those glasses. I want to dump this out before, because I want to keep tasting, and if I drink too much, I'm going to have a hard time.
I'm just going back.
But that was very interesting to see the difference between those two. And
did you pick up the smoke in 18? To me, it's a little dominated by a smoky character. Smell it in the empty glass. This is one of the ways for me that I find very illustrative about the amount of oak in a wine is after I finish it, or if I just pour it out and then I smell the glass. That's when I can go, oh, that was barrel aged. You know, a Chardonnay or something. If I can't tell if it's been touched by oak, I can drink it, pour it out, and then just smell the glass and go, oh, that's an oak Chardonnay.
is that kind of like retro nasal?
A little bit, but somehow the glass, when it just has that little film, really, for me anyway, it brings the oak out a lot. In the 18, I had one barrel 25. It's just as a smoke bomb. They charred it a little bit when we got it, and I remember
Charred it instead of toasted it.
They charred it a little bit. They burnt it in places, and I put a Petit Bleu Reserve through it, and after about a month, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on with this thing? And it was just this smoky monster. I took it right out after a month, and then I put water in it for a while to try to get rid of some of that smokiness, but I still have it. And this one barrel 25, I got to watch it like a hawk and not leave wine in there for any length of time.
Should we retire barrel 25?
No, it's a good barrel. But
you
got to use it
just
judiciously.
a little bit, yeah.
So I forget what I have in it right now. It might be a Red Scare, but it's one of 8 barrels. So, a little bit of smoke from that one barrel, and I have 7 others, then that all balances out.
Got a good question from Gary that I was actually kind of wondering myself, talking about the filtering and how there's a little bit of yeast left in. Does that contribute to how the wine changes over time if there's that little bit of yeast left in it? I know there's no sugar in it,
That's a good
right,
question.
at that point, so that it's not going to be
no sugar.
converting it to more alcohol, but it could still be
It's a great question, because yeast are really great components to develop good mouthfeels and flavors. Oh. This is a good wine, because this wine, like Red Scare and Hermitage, all of these berry wines seem to really do well with some age on them. And
Imagine that. You can age a fruit wine. I never would have guessed.
what's amazing is I wouldn't want to drink 21 or 20 right now. They're just too young and fruity and tangy and sharp. And
so does the yeast change things?
what's that?
So does the yeast keep working? I did it already.
No, you didn't.
I did it with, I rinsed with the 15.
Oh, you poured it into there. And
So it's such a small amount. If
didn't see you do
it's such a small amount of yeast that's left over by the time you've racked a wine a few times that it's not going to change too much. More of what's happening, Matt, are the changes in the bigger biochemical molecules that are in there, the anthocyanins that are linking and breaking apart to change the character of the wine.
Why don't you show folks the
Oh yeah.
the neck?
Yeah.
What a mess. Dripping wine all over the place.
I know. Where did I learn to
Good.
pour wine?
So yeah.
Nothing.
See, so this is
I didn't
the
get any.
14 here.
Oh, it's 14.
Has quite a bit
Don't trip on that
up on the
keyboard,
neck there.
right?
And even, yeah, a little on this. You can tell it was lying down on this side.
On that side, yeah.
Yep, there's a little in there too.
My dad said that one time he was at a
Did you need to rinse
colleague's.
it? Or you rinsed
I did rinse it. Yeah. At a colleague's house in Milan. He was in Italy somewhere, and his friend's father had a cellar of wines, and he had some red Italian wines in there, Barolos and Barbarescos and various great Italian wines, and some of them were so old that the color had entirely dropped out, and it was a clear wine.
There are napkins behind you, Bob.
What?
Napkins.
Oh,
Napkin.
good.
There
Thank
you
you.
go. So now we're going to 15 and 14, side by side, which I think is a great way to do this. The big jump from, well, let me explain the gap in between here, because we're missing 16 and 17. So 17 is an oversight by me that we sold it so rapidly, I forgot to put a case up in the library before it all disappeared. It went too darn fast.
Matt, how many bottles you got?
And
That's when we met Matt.
I think, yeah, maybe Matt bought the last case of 17. So the 17 is no more, or maybe some people have it out there in their own cellar, which would be great. Bob, maybe you have some in your
I might
cellar.
have some.
I don't have any more, but 17 is gone. 16, we actually didn't make it. We didn't make
Really?
Hermitage. We didn't make Red Scare. We didn't make Lakehouse Red.
16 was a hard year.
16 was a tough year. It was a transitional year.
Yeah.
Was there just a bunch of others?
we had
Is
some
it
cash
a
flow-
supplier?
We had some cash flow challenges. We had some fruit source sound challenges, and it didn't happen. We've been kicking ourselves for sure because we ran out of the 15 before the 17 was ready and things like that.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. It was a tough year. We were coming to the end of that year, going into the next year, wondering how we were going to survive.
Yep.
It was tough. And so we needed to dial back some of the rather expensive fruit purchases to just try and keep the cash flow right. So we could get through 16 or whatever the next year was, 17.
Well, Matt knows they bought a case and a half of that. They probably don't have that many left.
Yes.
Maybe we can do some trades.
Yeah.
I could do some trading.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually have some in our library.
So
What?
15 and 14, there's some major differences here. In one, we've just jumped another couple of years
major
further
differences,
back.
Yeah.
So there's some big differences from the age that comes to the wine as it matures in the bottle. The other is the source of the fruit, both the elderberries and the blackberries came out from the West Coast. And I was also using autumn berries.
Oh, the elusive autumn
And
berry.
autumn berries are a
From Golden?
local plant that grows here that I was harvesting out of my friend's backyard. And they had a really nice tannic structure to a wine. I was using Red Scare, using it in this. And then he moved away. I didn't have access to it. And I haven't had autumn berries for many years now. I think 17 was the last time I had autumn berries in any wine.
I feel like, yeah, the autumn berries is interesting because I think it shows up in some of the descriptions for the wine, and it's taken a long time for it to kind of
Disappear?
phase out, especially, you have a description typed up in one location and a different location, and it would disappear from one, but not the other, or sort of year to year, it would be a little different, or it would still be on the bottle label, but not another one. And it's like, sort of
We'll get it
elusive,
right eventually.
elusive fruit. I think it might not have been inaccurate necessarily. It might have been just been year to year, whether it was in there or not, but Might be there, might not be there. These are delicious.
So
So juice. What do you think about these?
right off the bat, just instantly, the 15's better. I enjoy the 15 better. Wonder if we'll sync up on this one. And then, and the reason, similar reasons, I think the 15 has a little more body, and I think the fruit is coming out a little more in the 15 for me. It's got a yeah, it's got a nice fruitiness. I like its fruitiness.
The 14 has, I don't know if it's more oak or there's a more like earthy, almost like root beer.
Root beer.
Root beer.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now that you said it, now that she said
I get a
it,
little
Just
sassafras,
instantly,
root beer.
I got what you
Spice.
got.
There
You
is
know
a
what I mean?
spice thing that's going
Not
on.
on I'm not sure if I'm getting it on the
No, I had
tongue, but
just
it's
put
just
it in
the
my mouth,
it's just the
and you said
just
root
smell
beer,
it.
and then I instantly got what you were talking about. Oh, you didn't
Just
get it in the
I don't
taste.
know, not as much. Mostly it's the smell.
I get a little bit of root beer on the aromatic
Mhm.
component to it.
I don't get it nearly as much on the mouthfeel, but the smell.
There's a dusty character to it too.
Yeah.
You get that?
And this is also the one that had so much sediment in it, and you can see it floating in there.
I don't know what that. Dusty is what comes to mind. I don't know what that is. I don't know what dusty tastes like. I try to avoid tasting
Yeah,
dust.
I definitely.
But there's an
definitely
older
agree that I
sort
like
of
15
dusty
more.
character to it. I don't know.
Not in stale, dusty. but
No,
like,
no,
like,
not in
like an
stale.
old attic.
Yeah,
When you walk
yeah,
into
yeah.
it.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
old earthy.
And it's
Yeah,
it might be
not
some
as
of the
much-
oak too.
I
It's
don't-
woody too.
Woody, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say sort of dusty was my replacement for earthy because I'm not getting
I think
that
I get
sort
where
of
you're going at.
earthy character of a barnyard kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a dusty being a little bit more.
I think that's the little
kind of
bit,
fleeting.
a
It's
little
so
bit
tiny.
of ethyl acetate, a little VA that's in this wine.
I'm going to show everyone color again. So this is
And these are a little
15.
darker. Still got nice red color to them though.
But actually, I think it almost goes the other way. I think 15 is a little brickier than the 14.
They're quite similar. The 15 for me, it's just a tad hot. There's a little bit too much alcohol coming off the nose. A little too much ethanol, which sort of hides some of the stuff that's there. I like the flavor of it better. I get actually more fruit and more interesting aromatics in the 14 to me. But it is a little lighter. I agree with that.
That's interesting.
But
Because usually you and I are usually more aligned.
well, I know what you're saying, and here again, it's kind of like the 1819 because the 14 it didn't have as enough guts to it. So in 15 I amped it up, but I also amped up the sugar to create alcohol more than I had intended to.
So
And
it's a
it
little
ended
hot.
up being a little bit
I
hotter.
remember that too. What was the alcohol on it? Do you remember what you? 13.5.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
So
There we
that's
go.
right on the money. Oh, look, it was 13.3. You amped it up 2 points.
The 15 definitely, it's, I don't know, it smells warm and full and it smells sweet to me. But like
2014.
a soft
So what is your
15.
opinion?
I think 15 has it smells warm and sweet in a way, but like a soft sweetness.
Well, that's kind of what I'm seeing as fruity. And It's
Yeah.
got
But this one, now that I've put that sort of
These
root beer
to
in my
me,
head, there's
this
a
is,
sharpness
you know,
to this one. That,
when you get age on wines, you just get so much
Well,
more out of them.
and that's the other thing that the age, both of these are rounder.
Yeah.
They're not as sharp. They're starting to
Oh
soften.
yeah, if you went back to 20
Oh,
right
boy.
now,
No,
it would
yeah.
just be,
We'll have to
razor
do that.
blades.
When we get all the way to the end, we'll
Yeah.
have to
we'll
go back.
bounce all the way back, yeah.
Yeah. If we're still standing.
Well, let's do a precursor for the 2-bottle club, and we'll do a 14 to 19 comparison.
Ooh, good idea.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Like it.
So I'm very pleased with where the wines are going as they age. I wish some of these wines would get there sooner. But it's one of those things, we tell people that come in and they taste the wines at the tasting bar. They're tasting 18, soon they'll be tasting 19. but we tell them that the drink window is, a good 5 or 8 years out beyond, because when you wait that extra 5 years, you're rewarded for it.
Honestly,
You
too,
get something that's smoother and more integrated. And
I think you should reconsider the time scale on these, because I think both of these are
still young.
They're still young. They still have room to grow.
Yeah.
And your 14 is 8-9 years old. So we need to up the time frame on this Lakehouse Red.
I think so too.
This tasting suggests it strongly.
Or even put more in the library, put several cases in the library, or a whole bunch, so you can release small batches. But we don't have
You
space
should
for
see
that.
the library.
We don't have space for that, do
We actually, Marika, when we first started the winery, we decided we were going to age out.
Yeah, okay.
We were going to age our wines longer, and we were holding back a lot of wines.
10 cases of each vintage.
Even more than that in some cases, until we hired somebody who was in the wine industry and came to us and said, now we hired them to distribute our wine for us, and they started working on distributing it. And we'd go into the cellar and no, you can't sell that. We're saving it. Nope, you can't sell that. Oh, we got it. Yeah, thank you. So
I know. That
and
was
she
hilarious.
was lecturing us like, you guys are in the wine business and you're telling me I can't sell your wine. Because we thought we'd age it. We'd save it for everybody. It was a good idea, but it wasn't very, maybe that's why we got into so much trouble in 2016, because we were sitting on all this wine that we were making and not selling it.
Right. Well, it's just because it's so fun to share these older wines. But
I know.
I think this is the better way to do it.
Yeah, but I do think we should put, 2-3 cases away, especially your
You're gonna need more warehouse space.
I know. All right, so
It's after 6:20, so we gotta
cruise.
get to this 13.
13. So what is
13, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this. This is the very first vintage. We're still putting it in a Bordeaux bottle, even though it's more Burgundy-like.
So tell about that. So why the different bottles? Why?
Hold on, we need to.
Oh, you didn't get into it. I'm sorry. See what happens when you drink?
Very different.
Usually you pour more, not less. But thank you. So
No,
all
just
these
point for
bottles are
myself.
Burgundy bottles, except for the very first one, which is a Bordeaux bottle.
Which was all our bottles.
Which was all our bottles in the beginning. They were all Bordeaux bottles. And they fit our labels too, which were all those long, skinny, straight labels. We realized that a number of our wines were more Burgundy-like, and we started to put them into a Burgundy bottle, and we had to change the labels because the labels wouldn't even fit.
I'm glad we did.
Which was nice. It was
like
a
this
nice change.
Fun label.
Right.
And I like the variety. I have so much fun when I'm packing up boxes to ship out wine. I make a point of, if they've got all these different wines, I make each layer, whether it's symmetrical, different ones, or try and put a variety, a cider next to the rosé, next to the petit blue. And it's fun that we have the sort of variety of labels. They look cool.
I agree. And the different sizes. We have 3 different types. We have actually more than that, 4 different types of bottles. A rosé bottle, our Burgundy white and reds, and then our classic Bordeaux and
our Belgian cider bottle.
Belgian cider.
The cork and wire.
Yeah. So I like it. And the mead bottles.
And our rockets.
Desserts. Yeah, the rockets. So this is really interesting. This just took a whole turn.
It doesn't. It tastes almost nothing like the others.
Right. Really different. But it's interesting. And it might be just getting on in age. Maybe the 13 is starting to age out, or I don't know, maybe the different ingredients are causing the differences in changes. But
There's a lot of, it's got the tongue tingle.
it's got the more raisiny
Oh yeah,
character.
that's a good word.
So this is ethyl acetate, what you're smelling. And ethyl acetate in small amounts is nice, brings out fruitiness. But when it goes too far, then it overpowers and masks everything else.
Yeah.
So
Does
it's a
that
flaw.
only, does that only happen over time?
It's normally
Or
happens.
get worse over time?
It can get set in motion early on, and you may not detect it. But this vintage had troubles from the get-go, and it didn't show up until about 2 years after it was in bottle. My notes going back to 2015, 2016 noted about this, the ethyl acetate that was in here. We had this early on with some of the wines that we made from Italian grapes and other grapes.
Yep. I had one the other night.
Yeah, and
2007.
it's just part of the challenge of working with all the microbes and different things that want to change what's in wine into things that we may not want. Vinegar is the
worst case.
Is the worst case format, and you end up with wine vinegar. So the wine, my job in winemaking is to try to capture those nice nuances, but not go too far. And it's not like you can see them and pour a little bit more in or take a little bit less out.
Evidently filter them out.
Or filter them out. It's just, they're there. So that's what this is. So this is an ethyl acetate.
So it's interesting because this has some characteristics that I really like. So it's a combination. I do think it's got too much of that ethyl acetate.
Yeah.
So is it just this bottle, or do you think it's all these bottles?
Well, I went back to my notes. We actually opened up 2 of these bottles 2 years ago, and one was, quite strong. We didn't drink it, and the other was quite acceptable. So I think it's variable. The cork that came out of that one, that's when we were using the long natural corks, and it's got a big strip up the side that went all the way to the top. So it was,
This does
yeah,
too.
so that went all the way up to the top. So it had a more direct channel to oxygen, and acetobacter and the other things that contribute to ethyl acetate development thrive on oxygen. So a flawed cork can exacerbate the whole situation.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think behind that is a really nice wine.
Yeah, this was fun. It was the first time we put it together. There were some autumn berries in this. This was actually back sweetened a little bit. So I put 3.75 grams per liter, so technically still a dry wine. 9 grams per liter is the threshold for becoming technically dry to non-dry wine. So this is way below that, kind of like what we do in Petit Bleu, just to take a little bit of the sour edge off of them. All the subsequent ones are completely dry, no residual sugar at all.
I smell toasted marshmallow.
It actually, ethyl acetate, VA, all of these things create all sorts of great aromatics. That's
I don't know.
great,
My head-
Marika. I love the way you're pulling these things
I know.
out. But it does create really unique aromas. Sometimes they go really bad and you just get nail polish and paint remover and stuff like that are terrible. We had some early on, remember, in my basement, we made something that smelled like nail polish.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Oh yeah. All right,
So let's finish on the last two.
It's still wine. It's still
Oh yeah.
drink it.
Let's do the 1419.
I think you're going to take that home tonight.
That one?
Well, I mean, you
We're
can
gonna
take
have
another
to
To
flip
negotiate.
coins. Yeah, we're gonna have to do some negotiations here.
one. So what are we
Let's do
comparing?
1419 because this is what the club members are going to get.
1419. Okay, 14 in this glass. I'm going to just do me so I don't screw you up. Because I seem to be good at that. And you won't spill as much as me.
And there's a 19.
All right.
Ooh, the lingering though on the 13. It's nice. It's fruitier. It's like
19,
like
14.
Fruit Loopy.
So this will be fun to do these side by side. 14, please. Thank you.
13 and 19. Okay.
Hold on. Look at you dual swirling.
It's really satisfying. All right, I'm gonna show off the colors for everybody.
Color. What about the color right off the
All
bat?
right, there's the 14. It's so hard, yeah. I
You
can't
may not
quite-
be able to see it through the computer
Yeah,
camera,
it's
but it's
hard.
really quite obvious in the glass.
Actually, can I do? Nah, not quite. All right, there's the 19. Well, this was the one I think when
19's still a little closed aromatically.
this one as we were comparing the colors, it was the 18, 19 that seemed starkly different, right? But then I was thinking as we went back, the 14 went a little pinker again. So these two don't look as different color-wise.
I agree. 19 it's got, you need, lay your 19s down. If you got a 19 in your shipment,
No one has a 19 yet. Well, no, the 2-bottle, they're going to get, when does that go out?
it's out. Just
Yeah, it's
really
out.
pick it
Nobody's
up.
picked it up yet, but it was released Saturday. So
Lay it down. Needs another couple of years, but you will be glad you did.
Well, I think 19 is going to be a great vintage.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think it's really coming along nice.
And I think your 14 could lay down as well, but you could certainly drink it. It's, I think it's got a couple more years. I think it's got some more rounding to do. So I think
It's just such a lovely wine right now, though.
I know. So and it's
I
risky.
could drink all that.
You take another couple of years, you never know, right? It could start to turn.
That's
So I would
the
say lay it down for another year anyway. That'd be my say. But of course, if you want to drink it, it's delicious, and have that with pork. I want to see this with some pork, or I want to see.
I'd like
it
to
with,
have some of your maple glazed scallops
ooh,
with this.
Yes,
That would be
have some
really
of
nice.
those too. I haven't had them in a while.
You should do that again.
I should. Hey,
Hey,
we should do that
Another
for
cooking.
another cooking show. So one of
do
my
that.
favorite recipes.
that one I wrote down. I wrote that on
And
the.
Geraldine, actually, you
on
did.
the
And
planning
Geraldine
list.
incorporated some ideas about, I've got to do some experimenting, but we're going to add some, a wine to the maple glazed scallop recipe, because I think there's a nice place for it.
Upcoming cooking show.
Upcoming cooking show, maybe in March, we'll do that. It'll be fun. So this is good. This is fun. You guys who got the 2-bottle club, you're going to get one of each of these, lay them down, drink them, your choice.
I think it's a great comparison right now.
It is.
I think it's really a great.
So have
Great
a
opportunity.
dinner party and open them both.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Hey, you
That's
learn a
what we-
lot.
Got plans for that.
You
sort of
get to
thing, yeah.
taste the differences. You can't get the 14 anymore. So then I would lay down a case of 19 and just let it sit there
Yeah, I think you're right.
for sure.
Got
Okay,
19
so I'm
for me,
cooking
yeah.
shepherd's pie tonight with lamb.
Oh,
Which vintage do you think?
oh,
With lamb. I think any of these wines will go.
I think any of them would go.
It's gonna go nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, we've concluded. We've gone
have?
over again. Yes.
We did?
Yes.
Already?
Another
We
Monday.
just started.
I know we just started drinking. There's still plenty of wine left.
Oh,
So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. We had certainly a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is very cool.
And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Next week, we're going to do the same thing. We're in trouble next week because the wines are all 18% alcohol thereabouts.
Much smaller sips.
Much smaller sips for sure if we're going to survive the night. Or we'll have to start spitting. I mean, that is
Yeah.
I know
That's
it's
so
so sad. I know. It's hard to
Also,
imagine.
I feel like
Right.
on camera
You
with
gotta
the
take one.
microphones, that's not going to be pretty.
No.
No.
So if you can't make it to our Valentine's Day wine and chocolate or wine and dessert presentation, which is noon to 4 next Sunday, then I hope you can join us for our next Monday live, 5:30 to 6:30, where we're going to try some of our dessert wines and some of the nice chocolates from Loon Chocolate, Winnipesaukee Chocolate, and maybe some of the leftover goodies from the.
That's true. Yeah, maybe we'll have some
yeah. If
extra
there's
stuff.
any leftovers.
I bet
Yeah.
there might be. We'll hope we run out.
We'll
We'll
have
have
to.
a good turnout.
No, I
see.
hope we have some left over. No, just kidding. So thank you, everybody. It was a great night, and we look forward to seeing you next week, 5:30. Cheers.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone. Cheers. I like the spice.